Today I have the great pleasure of speaking with Professor Ben Tonra. And Ben is a Professor of International Relations at the UCD School of Politics and International Relations and a member of the Royal Irish Academy. And today we will chat about Brexit, borders and chicken. A very intriguing title. Hi Ben, how are you today?
I'm doing very well, thanks. And yourself?
Great, thank you. So first question I have for you today, Ben, is where are you located and what's keeping you sane during the last few months?
Well, notwithstanding my corporate backdrop, I am, like so many others, crouched at home in a spare room, which is masquerading as an office. I suppose what's been keeping me sane has been some very early and long morning walks, some box sets, and wine, lots and lots of wine.
Okay, so Ben, you are full professor of international relations at the UCD School of Politics and International Relations. So can you please tell us about your research and what makes you so passionate about what you do?
Sure. Well, my research essentially asks how and why the European Union is developing a foreign security and defense policy, and in particular, the role of EU member states in the building of that common policy. And I suppose I'm passionate about my research because it's focused on issues of peace and war, on issues of global justice, and looking at the development of a brand new international and global actor, that is to say the European Union. And the European Union isn't a state, but nor is it just another international organization. It's a new kind of polity in the world. And watching the Union emerge on the international stage is just fascinating for me and tells us something, I think, about how global politics is developing.
Okay, and I'm wondering, have you seen any foreseen opportunities arising out of COVID-19 in your research?
Yeah, well, it's hard to look for the silver lining here, but I suppose like many others, my professional world has been turned upside down. But we have seen new opportunities in both teaching and research. And I suppose if I focus on research, I'd have to say that, initially the loss of academic conferences and seminars and travel and field research was really scary. I mean, we genuinely wondered what we were going to be able to do. And it's been a huge blow. But I have to say that, the technology that we're using here and now means that I'm actually busier in terms of my research and seeing more of international colleagues and seeing my international colleagues more regularly, even than ever before. Now, the interaction is different. The face-to-face, you really do miss it. And I certainly suffer from Zoom fatigue. But I think we've managed to make the best of a bad lot. And if we're going to take any lessons from this, it reminds us how much money we spend in our research just on travel and accommodation. So maybe we can do a bit of rebalancing once all this is over.
That's a great answer. And we won't have too much Zoom fatigue on this because we're only on for 15 minutes. So I suppose moving on, I wanted to talk a little bit about your title. So your title today is a play on words, with obviously chicken referring to the chlorinated chicken controversy, obviously post-Brexit food standards, but also the game of chicken being played by the EU and the UK in the negotiations. So which chicken scenario would you like to discuss first?
So you're asking me which chicken comes first. All right,
Yeah, exactly.
fair enough. I think I'd kick off with the chlorinated chicken because I think in many ways this has become emblematic of the entire Brexit project because it represents the very essence of what Brexit is, which, as I understand it, is the desire for the UK to diverge from common European standards in pursuit of something. Now, for me, I've never been clear on what the something is. I mean, whether it is a reassertion of national sovereignty, the pursuit of independence, new global opportunities in economic terms. But that is still not clear to me, and I think it's very much still contested what exactly is being pursued here. But what the example of chlorine washed chicken does do is it also embodies the cost of Brexit and the inevitable trade-offs, which I think, to be honest, leading advocates of Brexit in the UK have traditionally just failed to acknowledge. I mean, that's what chlorinated chicken represents. It's the necessary trade-offs that are faced, and we haven't come to terms with that yet. The second chicken arises from the first, and that is to say that, this is the game of chicken that you've referenced, that we've been watching between the UK and the EU, where each has been insisting that the other has to move first if we're going to secure a deal. I think if we were watching this as a movie, we would now be in slow motion at the very point just before the crash. Right now, both sides, the EU and UK negotiators, are in closed door, intense negotiations, really at the very last possible moment to secure any kind of a deal. Within days, I think we're going to know whether those talks have been successful and whether or not a collision has been averted, or whether the crash is actually upon us. But either way, it's going to be a very, very intense moment for all parties. So I think in summation, when we're looking at this, and as I say, the chickens are definitely coming home to roost in all respects. We really are at a tipping point in terms of not just Brexit, not just the UK and Europe, but also Ireland and the UK and Ireland and Europe. And that it is going to be a fascinating time for people like me who do this research, but it's also quite a scary time for many people.
Okay, thank you, Ben. So there's lots of questions coming in from the audience, and please do submit your questions via the chat function at the bottom of the screen. I'll try my best to get through all of them in the next 10 minutes, but some flying in at the moment. So here's a long one for you, but it kind of goes along the lines of what you were just speaking about. So obviously last weekend, the UK government were locked in talks with their European counterparts, and some of the main stumbling blocks that have been promoted, I suppose, in the media were fishing rights and goods. But this speaker is talking about services. We must remember that services make up 80% of the UK economy and even a higher share of their employment. What effect would a no-deal Brexit have on UK services?
I mean, they're economists better placed than me to speak on this, but I think the short answer would have to be cataclysmic. Yeah. But this balancing of fish versus financial services is again emblematic, because fish has become a totem of the UK sovereign independence. The control of UK fisheries and UK waters has become such a central feature out of all proportion to its economic significance. But like Brexit as a project itself, it really is much more about the image than it is about the substance.
Okay, and this is another question along those lines. So the UK wine industry has been particularly vocal in its request to the UK government in agreeing a deal with the EU over tariffs and customs. Do you think that the wine industry will suffer as a result of Brexit?
I mean, the British wine industry isn't exactly a global leader in its field, but it's certainly an area of economic activity that also needs access to its closest markets. And this notion of geography being important to trade is again something that on the face of it, many of the leading voices within the Brexit campaign have simply ignored. And the thought or the idea that the UK would be able to sell British wine overseas in a way that it couldn't do as a member of the European Union is simply nonsensical. But again, you come back to this idea that Brexit is much more a complex of ideas than it is based in economic rationality.
Okay, so here's changing the subject slightly. Brexit or COVID-19, which will cause most disruption of the UK economy?
Oh, no, that's a crapshoot.
That's a tough one, Ben.
Between those two. I mean, obviously, in the medium to longer term, it's going to be Brexit, because you're looking at a systemic transformation of the British economy. COVID is a short-term, severe, desperate shock to the system, but we can, in the light of where the international financial markets are and the availability of cheap money, we can buy our way out of COVID. The UK can't buy its way out of Brexit.
Okay, so along the same lines, here's one for you. So it's a little long, so bear with me. Actor William Shatner has said that the post-Brexit VAT rules make it uneconomical to sell his Star Trek merchandise in the UK. How significant is a VAT case study like this?
Well, listen, as a Trekker myself, I'm acutely conscious of William Shatner and what he's been doing, and I as a Twitter user, I also caught that conversation. But again, it's an illustration. The UK has an outsized perception of itself and its global role. Other countries, other producers, other markets are much more hard and fast and hard-nosed about what the UK is and what its potential is. And the UK is going to lose out as a result of not being a member of the European Union. Now, there may be marginal areas where it can do things in a new and different way, and perhaps even in a better way. But on balance, it's a lose-lose situation for the UK, and there's no other way of measuring it.
Okay. So now, I suppose the Irish impact. So there's a lot of questions coming in on that. So I'll try to get through some of them. Is the Good Friday Agreement under serious threat?
I think there are three areas in which the Good Friday Agreement is under threat. It's under threat in terms of the politics of the peace process and tearing communities apart. It's a threat in terms of the actual realities on a border, and every border has to be somewhere. And the border in the Irish Sea itself creates difficulties economically and politically. And then thirdly, we also have the security dangers that might arise as a result of reinforced violence on the island of Ireland. So I think, again, Brexit is a lose-lose, and certainly in the security realm, in British-Irish relations terms, it's very, very negative. And the final illustration you get for that is security cooperation between the UK and Ireland. Thus far, that has been governed through the European Union, European arrest warrants, and very close cooperation in the security realm. If we don't get this deal that people are searching for, all of that security cooperation is lost. And trying to make up for that in ad hoc ways, again, is a net loss to both countries, both societies, in terms of our shared security.
Okay, so there's a lot of questions around that, and I suppose just one along the same lines is Anglo-Irish relations going forward. What do you envisage for these? Just trying to summarize about 5 comments in one.
I think what it encompasses, we have a lot of work to do. Okay. We had a shared membership of the European Union, Irish ministers, officials, on a day-to-day, hourly basis, rubbing shoulders, sharing analyses, working together, cooperating collegially. That is now all lost. We have to replace that now with new and reinforced bilateral structures. I know that I think Leo Varadkar, when he was Taoiseach, was talking about replicating the Franco-German model of having joint cabinet meetings and institutionalizing bilateral cooperation. We have to do that, and we have to do it at a very, very senior and serious level. I know, for example, the British Embassy in Dublin has been reinforced on that point, and I'm sure that the Irish Embassy in London is the same. But we have a lot of work to do to maintain what have traditionally been very close relationships, notwithstanding even the current tensions.
Okay, so more on borders. So are any other borders between EU and EFTA countries friction free? What does this say for Britain?
No, there's no non-EU border that's friction free, and the UK is opting for a model which is several places removed even from that EFTA model. So the friction is going to be considerable, and even if we get the deal that's on the table, it is a very thin and shallow deal. As you said earlier on, it's only dealing in certain categories of goods. Whole sectors of the British economy aren't even covered by this deal. So it has to be said, and this will come as no comfort to anybody. Even if we get this deal, we have years and decades ahead of negotiating and rowing between the EU and the UK on economic access and economic cooperation.
Okay, that doesn't seem good, but okay, here's so another question. The UK seems not to want defence or security cooperation with the EU. Is this to emphasize NATO or for some other reason?
That's a great question, and it's very weird because for Theresa May, security defense was at the top of her list of things to do with the EU. In fact, security defense was actually presented as one of the UK's trump cards in bilateral negotiation with the EU. They have literally thrown that card away, not least, I think, because of political opposition within the British Conservative Party and the abrogation of Theresa May's original deal. So security defense remains critical. I know that the UK remains committed to its security obligations in Europe, both through NATO and bilaterally, including the deal with Ireland. We have our own memorandum of understanding with the UK on defense. So this is going to be an area, again, of ongoing contestation, ongoing argument, but NATO is definitely going to be, for the UK, their central forum for that contribution going forward, as well as bilateral links with individual European states.
Okay, so we're running out of time, so I'm gonna summarize the rest of the questions by I suppose asking you one about election day. So obviously today is election day in the US. And there's a couple of questions about that, but one is, where does the US election or US presidential election fit into the Brexit picture?
It's very, very important. As everybody will be aware, one of the big prizes that Boris Johnson has been seeking throughout Brexit is a trade deal with the US to compensate for the loss of the European Union as their main trading partner. Nancy Pelosi, the House of Representatives, has said, if you mess with the withdrawal agreement, if you don't implement the Irish Protocol, you don't get a trade deal. If Biden comes in, that doubles down on that statement even further. And we know that the Biden foreign policy team have already made some very, very strong statements on that. So certainly from Boris Johnson's perspective, I think a Biden presidency is problematic. And from an Irish perspective, a Biden presidency is nothing but positive on that front.
Okay, and people are asking for your call on the US election. Let's finish on that one.
It's a very, very short call. My heart says Biden, but my head says too close to call.
Okay. Oh, well, thank you so much. Unfortunately, we are out of time, so sincere apologies to all of those whose questions I didn't get to. I just wanted to take this opportunity to say thank you so much to Ben. Thanks so much, Ben, for a fascinating discussion.
Brilliant.
Such a fascinating discussion today, Ben. And thank you to everyone for joining in. So we run these seminars weekly. So please check out zoomforthought.ie and where you'll find our seminars every Tuesday. So thanks so much again, Ben. Thanks so much.
Ciao.
And thanks, everyone. And have a great day and see you all next week. Take care. Bye.
Bye.